What's up YouTube, it's your boy Nash here, welcome back to the channel, and welcome to another episode of WWE's Biggest Issue. This week's episode is going to be very different, but very special, because for this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about Randy Orton's 20-year career as we celebrate his 20th year in WWE. In fact, other than The Undertaker and I think maybe John Cena, Randy Orton is the only person in WWE to have never wrestled in any other promotion that wasn't OVW, which is incredible. So for this week's episode, I'm going to be talking about some of his best moments, some of his worst moments, his everything that he had accomplished, and also some of my favorite moments involving Randy Orton. So let's get straight into it. So you guys know Randy Orton actually debuted in WWE literally today, 20 years ago. In 2002, right? Like, literally weeks after WrestleMania, and his first match was actually against Hardcore Holly, which was a hell of a victory for him. And a lot of you guys might not know, but for those who did not know, Orton actually was a U.S. Marine back in 1998, from 98 to 99, and he was actually a private first class. He was in the 1st Battalion unit in the 1st Battalion 4th Marines infantry, which was his unit, and he ended up getting discharged back in 99, which was unfortunate, but it's interesting too, because when you look at Randy Orton and the type of man that he's become now, it all dates back to when to how he got his start in the business. And for those who are wondering about him being discharged, why he got discharged, he received, apparently it was from a bad conduct discharge. One for it was on 2 different occasions. One for disobeying orders from a commanding officer, and the other one was actually after going AWOL, on 2 separate occasions, which was pretty, yeah, it was not good. But as far as being a sports entertainer, a superstar, he made his debut in 2000 at the Mid-Missouri Wrestling Association in Southern Illinois, Southern Illinois Conference Wrestling in St. Louis. And it's interesting because that promotion was under his father, Cowboy Bob Orton Jr., who is a Hall of Famer. And of course too, Randy Orton had refereed a few a few matches with World Organized Wrestling, or WOW, which was where his uncle Barry Orton worked. And then eventually he ended up getting signing a deal with WWE, and was sent to their developmental brand, Ohio Valley Wrestling, in Louisville, Kentucky, where he continued his training, and he had went up and he was he was in the ring against guys like Rico Constantino, and of course the Prototype. But you guys are wondering, who's the Prototype? Well, if you haven't figured it out, maybe this might give you a clue. Still don't get it? It was John Cena. John Cena was known as the Prototype. And he even also teamed up with a guy by the name of Bobby Eaton during a tag team title tournament, to which I guess they didn't even win the tournament. But he was then and then he eventually he eventually got signed to WWE to be on SmackDown for a bit against Hardcore Holly, and it was actually on this day 20 years ago. Funny enough, and he ended up becoming a babyface and was placed in a series of matches with Hardcore Holly, and was traded to Raw where he defeated Stevie Richards in his debut. And he eventually suffered a shoulder injury, putting him on the show for several months. And then while he was recovering, if you guys didn't know, he had his own show, his own segment called the Randy News Network, RNN. We need to get that back, honestly, because I heard rumors about that, and I heard it was pretty funny, to say the very least. It was just a weekly vignette talking about, him talking about, his injury, how, when he's coming back and all that. And then eventually he transformed himself into a narcissistic, self-centered heel. And then once his shoulder was ready to go, he ended up joining Evolution, which that was when his career just jump-started. It went straight up to the top, winning so many championships, and to show you guys the titles that he held, to show you guys some of his accomplishments, overall, if you will. He was named Wrestler of the Year in 2009 by the Baltimore Sun. Big shout out, no copyrights. You guys know how it works with the algorithm, of course. He was also given a Guinness World Record for most appearances on a pay-per-view for a male WWE superstar, which is incredible. He won the Ohio Valley Wrestling, the OVW Hardcore title twice, and of course Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Awarded him Feud of the Year in 2009 with Triple H, Most Hated Wrestler of the Year in 2007 and in 2009, Most Improved Wrestler of the Year 2004, Most Popular Wrestler of the Year 2010, Rookie of the Year 2001, Wrestler of the Year 2009 and 2010, and ranked number 1 of the top 500 singles wrestlers in the PWI 500 in 2008. Now in WWE, if you guys have seen all that Randy Orton had accomplished over the years, you guys know. But for those who didn't watch WWE, from in like 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, he had won the WWE title 10 times, the World Heavyweight title 4 times, making him a 14-time champion, a former Intercontinental Champion, former United States Champion, a former World Tag Team Champion with Edge. He's a 2-time and current Raw Tag Team Champion with Riddle, and of course a former SmackDown Tag Team Champion with the Wyatt family, Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper, and of course 2 former Money in the Bank winner in 2013, a two-time Royal Rumble winner, 2009 and 2017, the 17th Triple Crown champion, but the 10th Grand Slam champion under the current under the current format, 18th overall under the current format. Two-time Slammy Award winner for Hashtag of the Year in 2014, which was the hashtag RKO out of nowhere. And of course, Rivalry of the Year in 2020 with Edge during the pandemic. And he even also won the WWE Year-End Award for Shocking Moment of the Year 2018, back in 2018, for tearing Jeff Hardy's ear. If you guys don't know what they meant by that, in 2018, Jeff Hardy was in a rivalry with Orton where Jeff ended up you guys know Jeff has gauges. I believe is what they're called, and Randy Orton would expose it by putting his ear through the earlobe, by putting his finger through the earlobe and just wrenching on it, or taking a screwdriver and just twisting the earlobe to a point where it rips, basically, which thankfully it did not. The Wrestling Observer named him Most Improved in 2004 and awarded him the Most Disgusting Promo Tactic in 2006, exploiting what happened to Eddie Guerrero. If you guys have no idea what that was about, in 2005, right around the fall of 2005, Eddie Guerrero passed due to from what I remember, I believe it was like drugs, and it caused a heart attack. I'm actually gonna look it up really quickly. I believe that was the case. I'm actually gonna go to, let's see. If I remember correctly, I believe it was from drugs. Let's see. Found unconscious in his hotel room at the Marriott in Minneapolis. It was from an acute heart failure. From an acute heart failure due to underlying atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. So yeah, so it was in the fall of 2005, and words really can't describe, how people felt about that. If you look at Eddie, if you were to look at Eddie's accomplishments, in WWE, former WWE champion, former European champion, U.S. champion, former Intercontinental champion, tag team champion, Eddie had won so much, had won a lot of championships, throughout his entire career, and the way it happened to him was just so undescribable, if you will. But right around the time that Rey Mysterio had won the Royal Rumble. Randy Orton had kind of promo saying, explaining what happened to Eddie and saying that he was that in this quote he said Eddie's down there in hell. That was the promo that he cut, and that made him one of the most despised superstars in all of WWE. And just looking back on that moment, I'm only saying this because when you look at all the promos that Orton had cut over the years, you think about that. You think about that moment in time. When Eddie, when Randy Orton exposed, or rather exploited what happened to Eddie. That was probably his best work, and I'm not saying that to disrespect Eddie Guerrero in any way, shape, or form. I'm saying that because it truly was one of his best works ever. He solidified himself as a top heel in WWE on SmackDown simply by just saying that. It was so heartbreaking for him to say that. For us to hear him say that, but it was so good for him to, again, solidify himself as a heel, if that makes sense. He was also voted most overrated in 2013, worst feud of the year in 2013 as a member of the Authority versus the Big Show, worst feud of the year 2017, Bray Wyatt, and worst feud of the year 2021, The Fiend Bray Wyatt and Alexa Bliss, and worst worked match of the year 2017, Bray Wyatt, WrestleMania 33. And I find this interesting because when you look at some of his best matches, in WWE, one of his best matches was obviously some of the big matches that he had over the years was obviously against guys like John Cena, guys like Triple H, and guys like Seth Rollins and Edge and Jeff Hardy. But Bray Wyatt probably had to have been his worst feud ever, not because of the fact that Bray Wyatt didn't really know what to do as WWE Champion, but it was because of the fact that Randy Orton pretty much just buried Bray Wyatt, and that was what solidified Bray Wyatt as sort of like this mixed reaction superstar. For Bray, it was a double-edged sword. It was either the fans cheered him and they loved him, or they booed him and they did not want him in WWE. And if you guys don't remember, there was a time in 2008, like right around 2008, 2009, where he had suffered a second shoulder injury, simply from doing some things, and it caused him to actually have a brand new theme song, which is the one that he's now, which is voices performed by Rev Theory. I have to admit, to show you guys another one of his best, his best work, other than the whole Eddie Guerrero exploitation. Legacy. You guys are wondering, what was Legacy? Legacy consisted of three men who were all second gen, third gen superstars: Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, and Ted DiBiase Jr. Funny enough, Rhodes was in and this actually started when Ted DiBiase Jr. actually debuted in WWE in 2008, and Cody Rhodes was with Hardcore Holly as one half of the World Tag Team Champions, and at a pay-per-view called Night of Champions, not Clash of Champions, Night of Champions. There was a big difference between the two, obviously the name, but still. Night of Champions 2008 was an interesting one because DiBiase Jr. came to WWE as a heel, and Rhodes was a babyface, but there were a lot of people who didn't really see him as a babyface. They saw him more of a heel of sorts. And so when the match began, Rhodes turned his back on Hardcore Holly, and essentially he became a quote-unquote two-time World Tag Team Champion, but this time with DiBiase. Right around that time was when Orton had gotten re-injured in a motorcycle accident, came back to Raw on September 1st in 2008, right around 2008, and that was when the faction known as Legacy started. Basically was right around the summer, right around the fall of 2008, and they brought in a superstar by the name of Manu, who is actually a relative of the who is actually a part of the Anoa'i Fatu legacy, with guys like Roman Reigns and the Usos, and of course Naomi being Jimmy Uso's wife, of course. And that's how, and that was pretty much how Legacy started. Was from DiBiase, coming into WWE, and then Randy Orton coming back from his motorcycle accident of sort. And it just got, and it got to a point where at that time, Orton became the most despised superstar in all of WWE, and establishing himself as the top heel in WWE. But all in all, this is the nature of Randy Orton. It's with him. It's 50-50. It's either you love the guy or you hate him. For me, my top favorite, if I had to pick 5 top moments or top matches of Randy Orton in WWE, I think number one on my list anyway would probably have to be SummerSlam 2009, August 23rd, the Staples Center here in LA, against John Cena, where he got himself counted out, he got himself disqualified, and Vince pretty much told Orton, hey, you can't do that. If you get counted out or DQ'd again, you're done. You are no longer WWE champion. And it's interesting, and I find it interesting too, because you look at Randy Orton, as a third gen superstar. As I had mentioned earlier, his accomplishments were just sparkling, absolutely incredible, like Hall of Fame worthy, and his matches with John Cena would probably have to be some of his best work, including SummerSlam 2009, which is obviously my number one, a pay-per-view called Bragging Rights in 2009, where it was an Iron Man match, and I think it was tied up. It was all tied up, if I remember correctly. I want to see this one really quickly. Let's bragging rights. 2009 bragging rights pay-per-view. The Iron Man match. Here we are. So it ended up being 5-5 at the last. It was a hell of a match. As far as like that match itself, that was what ended this storied rivalry that dated all the way back to 2006. So like 2006, 2007, when Randy Orton, had his eyes on the WWE title, and it was just insane. It was insane. It was absolutely insane. So the first point went to John Cena via submission. The second point went to Randy Orton, so it was tied 1 apiece. It ended up becoming 2 apiece when Cena and Orton pinned each other, making it a double pinfall. Cena got the next fall, and then Randy Orton got and ended up getting the next 2 falls, making it 3-4. Cena ended up tying it up. Orton got his 5th fall. Cena got his 5th fall, and then the match ended the way it began, with a submission known as the STF. And it's interesting because that was what ended the rivalry, of John Cena versus Randy Orton. But you guys know, over time the rivalry ended up coming back. So that was probably has to be his best work. I would say Royal Rumble 2017, where he won the Royal Rumble. I would probably say his best work. His other best work would probably have to be with Edge in 2020 during the pandemic. And number 5, his current run right now as Raw Tag Team Champion with Riddle, which the question becomes, will it end at Backlash? That is the big question. We will find out at WrestleMania Backlash. But all in all, I'm going to be honest, I don't care if he was a babyface or a heel. Randy Orton will forever and always be one of the best to ever do it. I don't think there will ever be another superstar like Randy Orton. And if you guys heard music in the background, I've got Zelda's Lullaby from Ocarina of Time. You guys know what's up. Mental health can really kick in the ass. But again, all in all, I don't think there will ever be another guy. I don't think there will ever be another superstar like Randy Orton. But that brings me to the question of the day: what is your number 1 all-time favorite Randy Orton moment? Let me know down in the comments below. And that will do it for today's episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure you guys smash that thumbs up button. If you guys are new to the channel and you guys want to see more episodes of WWE's Biggest Issue, which get posted every Monday, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you guys do not miss out on any new content that comes your way. And as always, make sure you guys follow me on Twitter and on Instagram. All the links will be down in the description below. And if you guys have any fan mail that you guys want to send me and you guys want me to open it up on the channel, all the info will also be in the description as well. And on that, this is your boy Nash, signing out.